What's up, and welcome to the All Elite Wrap-Up. It is me, the OG Fig Kid, Mike Belcaster, not feeling well tonight. We wish him the best. He'll be back next week. But joining me, as always, the other half,
the ace of the tavern, Stephen ACEFIELD, live from the No Cell Studios to talk about AEW Dynamite, Quake by the Lake.
What's up, guys? We got old fat guy BMX in the audience tonight. We've got Austin here, and old fat guy did not see, so he needs to catch up with us.
A lot of pressure. We got you, but you got to listen tomorrow to the Chads break it down. They got it line by line for you.
And you didn't miss much tonight. Other than the beginning and the end. The rest was just filler. But the end was good. I jumped off my couch, Ace. Did you jump off your couch when you were watching the end?
I was pleasantly surprised with the ending. I was waiting for it. I did like that they gave the main event 30 minutes. It felt special.
Very timed out tonight.
It was very good. I mean, usually the main events are rushed. It's been a big complaint over here in the tavern about these main events. They're starting matches at 9:52 for a title match. Like, you knew it was going to be a good match, and we'll get into it, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. Let's get into the news. Why don't we go?
Yeah.
Why don't we plug this shit first, Tom? What are you doing? Guys, I'm too distracted over here. Go to theturnbuckletavern.com. Follow, like, subscribe to us everywhere you possibly can. You'll get a list when you go to theturnbuckletavern.com of everywhere that we are. You can watch us stream, listen to our podcasts, follow us on social media, join the community. Come join the... Oh, that's not the Discord page. Oh, I don't have a Discord advertisement here.
You can still call the tavern, though. It's not too late, guys.
Yeah, listen, you can. Let's forget about the Discord for a second. Call the tavern, 304-404-2004. Leave us a voicemail. Let us know what you think of the All Elite Wrap-Up show or anything at the tavern. Your voicemail will probably be played on a flagship show on Thursday morning. And if it's not this Thursday morning, might be next Thursday morning. So definitely call us. Let us know what you think of what's going on at the tavern. Really quick, go buy a shirt or a mug, a Teespring, theturnbuckletavern.com. You can get the link for Teespring. And also you get the link for prowrestlingtees.com/tavern. You can buy a OG Fit Kid shirt. You can buy a Mike fucking Belcaster shirt. You can also get an Ace of the Tavern shirt. So go there and check it out. Support us. And yeah, if you go to theturnbuckletavern.com, Shot of Nostalgia shirt right there. You can also go get the link for Discord. Join us on Discord. Join us in our watch parties. There's GCW this weekend, so I'm sure there's going to be a watch party. So, yeah, guys, follow us everywhere.
We get a double shot of GCW this weekend, 13th and 14th. It's going to be awesome.
Nice. All right. Now,
let's fucking go.
It's time for the news.
All right, let's get right into the news. And we got a lot of things to sift through, Tom. It's just you and I again, so a lot of news to talk about. Let's start with Malachi Black, who we saw on our screens tonight, and a very interesting segment with Sting, and I'm sure you and I will talk about that. But Malachi revealed why he was off TV for a bit and hasn't been as active. He's been dealing with a back injury, and to the point where he thought he was going to have to retire. This felt like a theme where Bryan Danielson was saying the same thing. So on his TikTok channel, he revealed he's been dealing with a significant back injury. Then he actually said, I thought it was going to force me to retire. And he had said, and I quote, till about 3 months ago, I was dealing with the back injury, convinced I was going to have to, that it was going to force me into retirement. But after a literal year of treatment that went from working to complete failure on several occasions, we all of a sudden hit the correct vertebrae during a dry needling session, everything released. From there, we were able to rehab and strengthen. You can check video 2 for this horrendous view of my personal reaction to it. So what do you think about that? We just kind of talked about on the tavern that we assumed they were not utilizing House of Black correctly and that they weren't prioritizing their time on TV. Do you feel a little bit better about it now, or are we still kind of mad at Tony Khan about it?
No, I absolutely feel better about it, but I wish they would have said something, because we're sitting here getting mad at the company. Like, why aren't you using them? Why aren't these guys getting stories? And meanwhile, the guy's suffering with a back injury. He thinks it's going to be at the end to his career. I mean, they didn't have to let us know the severity. They could have just... Malachi is on social media. He could have said something to calm down the fans, to calm down the House of Black fans, and just let us know. But, I'm glad he's better. I'm glad he's going to be back on our screens, and I hope we see him featured on our TVs on a weekly basis now.
I do think we will see a lot of House of Black, and in my prediction, and we'll get into the Trios tournament because that's going to be announcing. I think they're going to be in the finals, but One thing about the injury and some of these injuries we've been seeing, I know there's been a lot of pats on the back going towards AEW's way for the lightened schedule. There's something to be said about reps and getting all these matches in with the house shows and the live events, keeping your body calloused. And I think a lot of these guys that are light on the work, it may make getting injured a little bit more frequent. And I know that sounds like it's a contradiction, but seems to be true. We have a lot more injuries in AEW. I mean, WWE side, there's a lot of injuries as well, but it seems more of it's kind of freak things like the Cody thing. That's not preventable through, callous bodies, but it seems like back injuries, neck injuries, things that might have not happened in the past if you have these reps. Do you think there's something to be said about these guys not working enough?
No. I've talked to guys who are former wrestlers, and they first of all, I said, one of the questions I asked is, does it help having match after match with these guys? And he's like, absolutely not. When you've made it that far, you should be able to get into the ring and have a match with anyone. And I don't think, they're still wrestling on a semi, weekly basis between all the shows. And these guys are pros. They've been around for a while, especially the older guys. I think it's better for their bodies not to be going at it as much. I mean, there's people that we could ask about the health of it. Like, I'll ask these guys that I asked before, like, does it help their bodies wrestling less or does it hurt it? So,
of course, I think
watching wants to send me a message right now, and I'm not going to call anybody out, but if you're in here and you're watching, send me a message and I'd love to know your opinion on that.
I mean, I think there's a big thing to be said. It seems obvious that the less bumps you take, the less hurt you will be. But I also think there's a side of it where your body is not used to the pounding it did get from these matches, and guys that work 300 dates a year, they were able to push through these injuries. And I'm not saying it's a different mindset. I know we're being more careful with concussion injuries. I know with the Daniel Bryan concussion, we want to be extra careful with his history of brain injury. But I don't know, there's something to be said about this. And maybe the technology is even better that we're able to recognize guys are hurt and there's more leverage on the talent side that they don't have to push to keep their spot. Maybe the comfortability that Malachi Black has is like, you know what? I don't have to push myself if I'm not feeling 100%, and I can actually still have my spot when I get back. And it's obvious Tony is pro wrestler more than pro management.
Yeah, it's true. I just, well, here we go. The whole time that you're not working, your body starts healing. When you go back, you're basically starting over every single time when it comes to your spinal column. So is that an advantage for wrestling less or a disadvantage for wrestling less? Mr. Old Fat Guy BMX.
I mean, I would say building reps and building repetition with the bumps you're taking on your back. I'm sure there's certain things that it's worse for, but I think your body becomes used to it. And think about when you're doing any sort of exercise, when you stop and go, there's something to be said about that. I know we're not, exercising on a bike or running or walking. It's different than actually taking bumps in the ring. So it's all conjecture at this point.
So I was wrong. It's a disadvantage. You were right. I was wrong. It's a disadvantage to have that much time off. They should be in the ring more. So interesting. Okay.
I mean, we'll only know down the line, years and years from now, when we see the long-term effects of this. Obviously, the 300 dates a year from the guys in the 80s and the early 90s, we know how the negative effect it had on their bodies and how a lot of their lives have ended shorter. And I know steroids played a huge part of that, but we won't know.
Happy medium somewhere, I guess, between the WWE schedule and the AEW schedule. But some of the guys not as well known as, say, a Bryan Danielson, they're out there on the indies all the time. Malachi
100%.
was out there with Brody King, tag team wrestling a lot. So, but so some of the guys are out there all the time. It's just the bigger names are out there a lot less now. And again, they've earned that. They've been around long enough that if they don't want to do an indie booking, they don't have to.
There's something to be said about Moxley being able to do those dates, but you would think that AEW would want him to be taking those bumps for all of AEW, not just New Japan, GCW. And I know it fulfills and it scratches that itch for Moxley. So it's also what he signed up for. But, we'll talk about more. I think it's an interesting conversation, maybe a debate question for the future.
Yeah, but we need a wrestler on there with us for that one. A guy who can give us firsthand knowledge.
Yes, visits the Tavern, any of those guys. Let's go back in the channels and revisit one of those guys.
Yeah. 100%.
Gringo Loco, come back, dude. Pizza on us if you come on.
There you go.
All right, we have a backstage update on Takeshita and AEW and how much longer he'll be in the U.S. I know we said a couple weeks ago, news dropped that he was going back to Japan. He wasn't going to be back in the States for quite some time, but that changed pretty quickly. And we all know he's made quite an impact since being here. and his short stint with AEW, he's really shown a lot of future stardom. I mean, people have really clamored to him, and like he's really captured the imagination of fans. So it's hard to say if he's going to officially sign with AEW at any time soon. He's officially a DDT Pro regular. So according to Wrestling Observer, Takeshita is currently living in the U.S. Will be here for about a year, wrestling all over. It is noted that AEW and DDT's pro relationship is strong enough that if Takeshita does decide to return to Japan, he's welcome back in AEW at any time. Obviously, we're going to talk about the match as we get to it. I'm assuming it's on both of our lists. That match he had with Claudio certainly felt like the official coming out party. If you weren't recognizing what Takeshita's been doing in the past couple months, now I think everyone had to take notice.
Yeah, I agree. I love Takeshita. He's been a breath of fresh air lately in AEW. He's quickly gained a following. So just to quickly go back to what old fat guy BMX said, constant high spots are killing these kids. There are good reasons the old timers used to be able to work into their early 60s. And that's an excellent point. Guys like Sting, who could still do it, wrestles a lot smarter than guys like Darby Allin are doing. Darby's the punch card is filling up for the bump spots, man.
Can you imagine if Darby's working a house show circuit doing that every night? Say he's working Brody King every night because they're just feuding. Can you imagine what that would look like? He would be retired by easily 31.
Again, it's got to be just as hard as him doing it as much as he's doing it now at that level compared to working a clean style on a nightly basis. You know?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, we talked about this when that match with the Hardys, and he did that ladder spot. And I mean, every night he goes out there and he does a killer spot. He took a beating from Brody King tonight, and he gets up and takes more. But I think there's something to be said about now he worked once this week instead of having to take a million indie bookings where he's killing himself without padding and the ring's not as set up and nice, and he doesn't have the medical staff at AEW that he, you know, all that stuff is helpful to Darby, but there's no mistaking that he takes a bump every time he's out there.
But I still think that one match he does a week with those spots is worse than wrestling 5 nights a week in a normal type of match.
Yeah, I mean, there's an argument to be made for that because I think Darby's style is the exception. He goes out there and he doesn't pull any punches. There's not an off night for him. If Darby's out there, you know you're getting 100% of pure carnage, and that's Darby's style. And I think he's here for a good time, not a long time, as Mike Belcaster would say. He's out there burning the candle at both ends, and that's what makes Darby so memorable every time he's in the ring, but it also has its downfall as well.
Yeah, 100%. A fun topic, something we'll definitely have to look at revisiting.
All right, so this popped up in the news about 10 minutes ago, and I had to put it on here, and it's loosely tied with AEW because of their ability to utilize this intellectual property, and apparently Warner is in possession of dozens of WCW theme songs. So WCW not really known for their theme songs throughout history. And I mean, we're watching 1996 WCW throughout Shot and Nostalgia, and their theme songs are not memorable at all. But there are some themes that, like the Wolfpack, the NWO theme song, which clearly is WWE intellectual property. But it's just interesting to me how any of this slipped through the crack, that somehow WWE isn't able to own some of them.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
So I'll give you the details on it. So WWE Hall of Famer Jimmy Hart recently spoke with Fightful Select and claimed there's an entire catalog of WCW theme songs that's still owned by Warner. WWE reportedly never took ownership of the songs as a part of the WCW sale back in 2001. Hart noted that the catalog includes many WCW theme songs that made it to TV, plus in a lot of unreleased songs, including songs from Raven, Perry Saturn. Jimmy Hart says there has to be well over 100 songs that are just collecting dust. He said he's hopeful that someone will look into the catalog. And apparently AEW and their music department are at least aware and looking into it. It's just interesting to me. I think in a petty world, and we're talking about this throughout the Monday Night Wars in 96, there's got to be a part of Tony Khan that wants to say, you know what, I'm going to just buy them just to have them to take them out of Vince's hand, not Vince's, WWE Titans' hands. I'm used to saying Vince, Triple H's hands, I guess.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, Triple H is just head of creative. But I guess it would be Stephanie and Nick's hands.
Yeah, Nick Khan. He's you know what?
Out of the WWE's hands.
He's the Game of Thrones. He I think at the end of season, whatever, Nick Khan standing tall with his family on top of the throne. Okay. So Jimmy Hart did come out and did say about all these tracks. I thought it would be interesting to just talk about because we did have a conversation. I think it was I forget, was it in the group chat or was it on one of these shows about theme songs not being memorable? Do you think that they could utilize some of these older themes and give them to other guys for older fans would recognize it and have some meaning towards it? Or do you think it's just kind of all a lot about nothing?
I think it's a lot about nothing.
Okay.
Like, honestly, like I watched very little WCW. Of course, I know the NWO theme. I don't think I know any other theme. I don't even know what Hogan's theme was in WCW.
It was very similar to Rick Derringer's Real American, but it's like it was a cheap knockoff. That's what all the themes felt like. Aside from the Wolfpack and aside from the New World Order, the original theme,
Yeah.
I guess you can make an argument that Chavo and Eddie's theme was pretty memorable, and they did utilize it in WWE, but it seems like that's property of Titan, I would say, because a lot of those themes are being we've seen refurbished versions of them on WWE TV. It's the Perry Saturn and the Raven one has me intrigued, and I wish BELCASTER was here. He's the biggest Raven guy I know. What his theme was, and if
he's the one Raven guy. Oh, sorry.
I mean, I like Raven for sure. ECW Raven's my guy, not WCW Raven, but he's the Flock guy. He said it on Shot Nostalgia. He loves Flock Raven. It's his favorite iteration.
Okay. I love Johnny Polo. He was my favorite version of Raven.
Oh, are you serious? Are you just trolling right now, Tom?
Joking. I'm so joking.
We'll get our fix. We'll get our fix of Raven throughout 1995 ECW in season 2 of Shot Nostalgia. So I'm pretty pumped for that.
There you go.
All right, so we'll stay tuned on the theme, and I just wanted to bring it up there because it happens to tie in with AEW, and you know that Tony Khan is one of the more pettier businessmen in the world, that he's going to go out there and try to grab some of this intellectual property if he can get it out of Titan's hands. I'm calling him Titan because I'm in 1996 land.
There you go.
All right, we have other news. Sammy and Ty Conti officially tied the knot, and we know that by the social media post that was legendary, whether it was the Cody post with Sammy and Ty, or was it the Tony Khan spinning circle that's now going to be legendary. I know Nick Storm reposted it. So they posted several photos on social media outlets. It seems to be, it was a who's who in wrestling that was at this wedding. Sean Dean was there, if you're wondering, the guy who beat MJF twice. Amanda Huber, Nikki Ash, Cody Rhodes, Tony Khan, looked like Pentagon and Ray Phoenix were there. So it seemed like a really good time. Now that they're officially married, maybe they can stop playing, whatever house on TV and just get it over with. Now they're just a couple. Let's just get it out of the way.
100%. But
it was interesting. What was your thoughts on the Tony Khan spinning video? Cringe or no?
I sent it to Mike as soon as I saw it. It wasn't. I just laughed. That wasn't bad. Every one of those was the same to me. They were all. Yeah.
We've all been at a wedding like that, and I 100% was Tony Khan at every wedding I've probably been at. Sunglasses on.
Wedding, he's probably drinking a little bit. He's having fun.
How many White Claws do you think Tony Khan had on that night? Over, under 6?
I'm guessing under. I don't think he's much of a drinker.
Interesting.
So
he's a White Claw guy, though. He's a seltzer guy.
Is he really?
Jim Ross ripped on him. I think it was the Jim Ross podcast. He was talking with Conrad about it, and they were talking about preferred drinks and whiskey and all that. And he's like, Tony Khan's a seltzer guy, unashamed.
But hard seltzer or regular seltzer?
Oh, hard seltzer, yeah. Like the White Claws.
The
Great South Bay Brewery has the best alcoholic seltzer you can find. Go out of your way to find it. I think it's distributed out in the United States everywhere else. Go and find it.
Here's my hot take. All seltzer tastes like ass.
That's just categorically false, I think.
Oh, I hate the taste of it. It's so bitter.
What about alcoholic seltzer? You don't like White Claw? You don't?
No.
Interesting.
It's like seltzer. It's terrible.
I'm a huge seltzer guy, so we have to disagree on that one.
Yeah.
All right. What we won't disagree on, though.
People love seltzer or they hate it.
That's a good point. It's like spicy water. It's bubbly,
It's like an acquired taste.
Fair enough. So what we won't disagree on is the fact that the Trios tournament looks pretty awesome. So on QUAKE at the Lake tonight of Dynamite, the full bracket for the company's Trios tournament to crown the first ever Trios champions was announced, and the finals will be taking place September 4th. At All Out in Chicago. So the teams included, we have the aforementioned House of Black, the Trustbusters, the Dark Order, Best Friends, Death Triangle, Will Ospreay and Aussie Open, La Faction Ingobernable, or LIJ, that's Rush and Andrade, and the Young Bucks, and a mystery partner. Initial thoughts on the teams being announced. Are they missing out on any of these teams? And who are you pulling for yourself as to come out of the 2 finals?
Wait, Will Ospreay's in this thing?
Yeah, Will Ospreay and the Aussie Open are going to be in there.
Holy shit. So wait, tell me all the teams again. I didn't hear this before.
I'm pulling up the full bracket just to have the matchups, but it's going to be House of Black, the Trustbusters, which is the Parker Boudreaux and the Ari Daivari guy.
Yeah.
The Dark Order with Hangman in their corner, Best Friends, Death Triangle, Will Ospreay and Aussie Open, LIJ, which is Rush and also Andrade, and the Young Bucks and a mystery partner who we believe is going to be Kenny Omega. Let's call it like it is.
Yeah. Oh man, I want House of Black. It's pretty.
All right, so we're going to be having Death Triangle versus.
That would get me more Will Ospreay on my AEW TV. I'd be there for too.
100%. So I'll give you the two different sides. So the one side, obviously, the two sides are going to face each other off in the finals. So Death Triangle will take on Will Ospreay and Aussie Open in the first round. We also have LIJ taking on the Bucks and a mystery opponent in the first round. And on the other side, House of Black and Dark Order, and also Trustbusters and Best Friends. So potentially, we could be looking at the amazing potential match of the Bucks and Omega versus House of Black for the first ever Trios Championships. And that's how you draw it up.
That's a main event, man.
The only other potential in there would be, obviously they planted the seeds for Dark Order because Hangman would be in the corner of them, but there's no way Dark Order is going to beat House of Black.
Honestly, I'm beginning to think it's not Kenny Omega as the mystery partner.
Who could it be though? With if it's not Hangman,
yeah, I don't know.
Who could it potentially be? There's nobody else.
Yeah, I would love it to be Kenny Omega, but I just don't think it's him.
He's gonna have to come back next week because
unless he cost them the match, like he walks away from them. So.
I mean, I got vibes this week, and I know I'll give shout out to J-Bone in the chat. He had said, "Looks like the Bucks aren't staying face for."
Oh, I agree with that 100%. That's a good point too.
You know,
as soon as that whole thing happened with Hangman tonight, I'm like, oh, they're not staying face. I like this.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of conversation. I'm not sure. Obviously, Jim Cornette's a lightning rod of conversation in a good and bad way, mostly bad. But he had said he has a lot of criticism for the Bucks always, but his main criticism lately has been the fact that he feels that the Young Bucks are ducking that FTR rematch because they don't want to give the win back and they don't want to be a heel against a face FTR and get a negative reaction.
It's a storyline.
He believes in real life. He believes that the Bucks are in it for themselves, which I completely disagree. Let me just say that.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that we didn't get FTR versus the Bucks feels weird to me.
We've already had FTR Bucks too.
I know, but the rematch, they got to have the rubber match. It's been building up. The fact they weren't involved in the ROH title with the Briscoes, it felt weird. Like it felt like it was going to happen.
Yeah. I think they're just doing a slow burn for it, letting it build.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be all about it. Listen, build it up for another pay-per-view. Bring it all the way to Full Gear in November. Like, I don't care.
I agree.
Push it all the way. But yeah, I mean, I'm really pumped for the tournament. It's a who's who of the trios division, but on paper, it has to be House of Black getting to the finals, and it has to be the Bucks and their mystery opponent because Will Ospreay in the Aussie Open would be awesome. Will Ospreay brings that tinge of stardom, but I don't think Aussie Open's to that level. You have to have your two best trios teams, and it has to be the Bucks and Omega versus House of Black. I think that's going to be it's probably the match of the year. It has to be.
We also got Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega in there, though. If those two teams square off.
And they've been hinting at that match for extended period of time. Will Ospreay's been doing the one-winged angel.
Yep.
Man. And it's also building for a longer story. Like you could, it's a beautiful tournament. I'm really excited for it.
Yeah.
All right. So we also had some criticism on the barbed wire everywhere match between Eddie Kingston and Chris Jericho. And it wasn't just in the Tavern. I know we all ripped it apart. But a guy whose opinion does matter, Nick Gage, the king of the deathmatch from GCW, joined Rewind, Recap, and Relive program to discuss the barbed wire everywhere match between Jericho and Eddie Kingston from several weeks back. So he was pretty critical and pretty honest. And Nick Gage tends to be honest when he's in interviews. He said, "Let's keep it real. Jericho and me in a deathmatch was awesome. Then they tried to write Jericho and Kingston in that barbed wire everywhere garbage. That match sucked. Just calling it how I see it. I'm sorry, but if you're going to get thrown in barbed wire and you have a shirt on, that barbed wire is going to stick to your shirt and rip your shirt." He says he likes Jericho and will be on the cruise in 2023. Continue to be critical of the match. And then he said, then you're going to get hip tossed into barbed wire net. You don't lay pads down underneath. I do like Chris. He's very nice to me. I'm not wrestling. I'm just doing a meet and greet on the Jericho cruise. Sounds like he's not shooting an angle. He's being very critical of that match, and I think it's fair.
Yeah, it's very fair. I like a guy who's going to be fair out there and be honest about it. It wasn't, these deathmatch guys put in their work, and I would imagine they wouldn't be very happy when they see guys trying to take credit for being in a barbed wire match that's not very authentic or real.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, it feels disingenuous to the style of match when you have it on that stage, and a guy like Nick Gage has it completely wired in. That's become his bread and butter, his way of life. And when you have Jericho and Eddie Kingston, in his mind, I'm not saying this is his words, not mine, making a mockery of that style of match. My complaint wasn't with the Carnage, because there was enough of it for me on a big stage like that. I understand AEW is a national promotion. It's not going to be Onita in a death match in Japan. But my complaint was the booking, was how sloppy it was, the ending with Sammy, the whole thing, getting out of the cage. It was, to me, an awful, it wasn't good. So
yeah, I agree. We all agree. We all know that.
All right. We have more news on the AEW's Fight Forever video game, and also who designed the cover. So
if you aren't going to do a real death match, don't do it at all.
It's a fair point, OFG.
There's a strong opinion because you may have some experience in that.
So the one thing I want to talk about with the Fight Forever video game, apparently the game story mode is going to be much different than any wrestling game before it. There will also be an additional mini game that was not shown in the Twitch stream from last week, and somehow it's tied in with Orange Cassidy. As far as the cover, THQ Nordic's team is responsible for designing the cover, which leaked sometime last week, and not the AEW graphics team. And on top of that, the wrestlers on the cover were unaware that they would be used, nor did anyone in AEW. So Just kind of a disconnected thing, kind of on brand for the way this video game's been, I guess, developed. It's taken a while. It feels like it's kind of a mess. And yeah, I mean, I'm excited to play it. I definitely am going to order it and buy it and support the venture, because I like the fact that it's more arcade style, and the fact that Ukes and THQ were involved again. I'm all in on that. But that's a little odd to me that they didn't know who was on the cover.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
So
I agree.
The cover was a little lackluster, in my opinion, too. When they showed it on the screen tonight on Dynamite, it felt, I don't know, maybe there should have just been one guy on the cover. Just Kenny, just Jon Moxley, somebody, just one person.
It's great to go put just a Kenny on there right now when he hasn't been around for a year, but I definitely agree. Like, Moxley would have been a good choice.
Yeah. Talking to me, G's vlog, I am retro, sir. That's who I am.
Right.
And support the venture. Absolutely right. I will always support ventures that I approve of. All right. Let's talk about someone who doesn't approve of the venture of the man named Tony Khan. Jack Evans shared his one complaint about working with Tony Khan in AEW. You and I were talking off air about the lack of communication in All Elite Wrestling's locker room. And he's talked about working with Tony Khan. He said he was a great boss. The only complaint I could ever make about Tony for sure is he is like the king of last minute mind changes. That would be my one complaint about him as a boss. But other than that, he was always very fair.
I mean, I've never heard stories about Tony Khan ripping up scripts the day of.
That was surprising to me. And I know Jack Evans wasn't involved in any major storylines, but just hearing it from him, yeah, I mean, Tony got this consistent vibe of he's been weaving these great stories from time to time, month to month, long-term storytelling, blah, blah, blah. And I know people are being a little bit more critical today about all the different holes in this booking towards the last couple of events. I know Forbidden Door gets a little bit of a pass, but for All Out and Double or Nothing, it felt like there were some holes in the buildup. But for this, it feels like we're kind of seeing a little bit of holes in the ship. A little bit of the shine is coming off not only AEW, but Tony Khan as
100%
leadership in
the
back.
Listen, we all, what was Big Swole? We all jumped on her when she made those comments at first.
Yeah.
And you know what? We've heard a bunch of the same since then.
Marco Stunt came out and said his stuff.
Yep. Bunch of people.
I don't think it's a bad thing about Tony Khan. I think the company has grown so much in the last 3 years that it's impossible for you to do it all. And especially where he's doing the stuff for Fulham and the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he has other things, management, financials. You can't be the head of creative and have time to deal with every nuance. There's only so many hours in the day. You're only one person. So I'm sure that rubs people the wrong way, and he has the people that he wants to talk to. But I think in the beginning, we had that leadership team of obviously the Bucks and Kenny and Cody were all those guys that were supposed to do that talent relation job. That sort of fizzled out with Tony Khan doing the power grab. And it's his company. He can do what he wants. but it sure feels like that dynamic change. It feels like the Bucks are just talent now. Omega's just talent. Cody, he's out. Tony's left holding the bag and trying to juggle all these things in the air. And I feel like a lot of them are falling to the ground.
Yeah, and listen, this is just the inexperience of a guy. First of all, it's a young company, so he's learning. The company has grown in the 3 years it's been there. They have way more wrestlers and employees since the beginning. And he's learned, hey, listen, I need to bring some help on because I need to be able to communicate better. So now he's put a team together that's underneath him for these wrestlers to talk to speak their concerns to and get it to Tony, because I'm sure, QT Marshall and a bunch of the other people will be the go-between. And now it gives these guys more of a chance for their voice to be heard, because these guys will go report to Tony, hey, this is going on. We think this is a concern, something you should address. Whereas before it might not have been able to get to Tony because, he's only one man. He's got to learn he's only one man. He needs to have other people there for creative. He needs to have people helping him, pitching him ideas, telling him what they think is good. At the end of the day, we learned with Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon had a room full of writers. He had people pitching him ideas all the time. But at the end of the day, everything came down to what Vince wanted. And that can't be the way it is when you're running a wrestling company. And we certainly don't want to see Tony Khan, and I don't think he will, make those same mistakes. He learns from his mistakes. Vince never learned. Vince, right up until the day he left, he was just doing things the way he wanted to. And he was running a company through the eyes of a almost 77-year-old. Like, how he doesn't have his pulse on what people want to see nowadays. So,
I think it's important for Tony.
Listen to it.
I think it's important for Tony, much similar to Vince in the heyday of the Attitude Era, to surround yourself with guys you trust that will not just tell you that you're absolutely right all the time.
Right.
Guys like Pat Patterson, Gerald Briscoe were guys that would tell Vince, obviously, and Bruce Pritchard as well. They were at one time guys that felt like they could tell Vince and pitch ideas and disagree with Vince because they were at the same level. But I think when you surround yourself with a whole bunch of yes men and guys that are just agreeing with you because you said something and you've never had a bad idea in your life, and he's ripping up scripts and it's going through him. It's just Vince's filter. It's Vince's humor. It's Vince's idea of who's a star. You're right. And I think Tony is still, it's 3 years ago. We have to understand AEW is in its infancy right now. So there has to be a level of building up a trust circle for Tony Khan. And I don't know if he has that yet. Clearly, we talked about QT Marshall, the Bucks and Omega. Who was the other guy you mentioned as well? With QT. I mean, there's a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, there's about 4 people who've been moved.
That have been boosted up. And I think over time, they have to earn that trust for Tony to let those things go, because right now, AEW is Tony's baby and he doesn't want anyone else making a decision. But eventually, if you want it to grow to the places you'd like it to grow to, you have to let other people make those decisions. You can't be involved in the minutia of a Jack Evans storyline. You just can't be.
Yep. I agree. And you know what? It's going to be interesting what happens over time. But here's another hot take. Tony Khan goes out and he buys Ring of Honor. Okay. And it's exciting because now he has a library and everything. But the Ring of Honor purchase right now seems to me almost identical to WWE purchase in WCW. We're just getting another brand's matches thrown in on our show, and it doesn't truly feel like another brand.
And it also, on top of that, aside from its production value to the show right now, it feels like it's another thing on Tony's plate, because 100%. His plate is overflowing already. You add on top of that ROH. He needs to bring that aside. You need to bring someone in that you trust, or just a good wrestling mind. I'm not saying Jim Cornette, but someone of the like that has experience booking a territory. Bring him to ROH and just let him do his thing. Utilize the footage. You focus on AEW 100%, because I think that's when things started to get a little bit muddy, when he's spreading himself too thin. You can't focus on Death Before Dishonor and then also build up All Out. You're only one person.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Like, the other thing he could do, you start separating him now. If you can't get a streaming deal, put it on YouTube for a year. Say we're going to stream it on for a year. Let it build that way, and then somebody sees it's doing well on YouTube. Somebody will pick it up.
So I agree. Yeah, and you
separate the two.
You have the platform of AEW Dark and AEW Dark Elevation. I know that's not ideal, and I know that's not what he promised the ROH diehards, but let's be honest, the ROH diehards are AEW fans as well, and I think you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. Like, yes, you're putting ROH on TV in a promotional spot that you feel like is important, but on top of that, you're pulling away from AEW storylines because you only have 3 hours of television. 2 of them are live, one's taped. Yep. How are you supposed to build up stories that are meaningful?
Yep, I agree. For both, it hurts both brands. It's not just hurting AEW. It's probably hurting Ring of Honor even more than it's hurting AEW.
And we'll definitely talk more about that because I felt like that was pretty apparent tonight. And I know there wasn't a lot of ROH stuff, if any. I know Satnam Singh and Jay Lethal were involved, but they're more AEW storylines now. I just feel like there's so much going on and it's wasted time. I think there's a lot of things, whether it be just quick segments or squash matches and momentum being lost. Like the Ricky Stark stuff is just very reminiscent of what they did with Wardlow just a couple months back.
Yeah.
You have all this momentum for someone that just turned face. You put him in a squash match against Aaron Solo.
Yeah.
It's just the same way you're feuding Wardlow with Mark Sterling. So you have to capitalize on this stuff.
Yep.
I don't know what the right answer is because, again, you're kind of handcuffed with the fact you only have 2 hours of live TV.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on because I know we could talk about this for a while. We have Jamie Hayter was injured at Battle of the Belts. She has a broken nose now during the match with Thunder Rosa. So she's reportedly missing some planned appearances at Icons of Wrestling, and Fightful Select later confirmed the injury with AEW. It's not currently known if she will miss any time in the ring, but right now she's missing outside appearances.
Oh, wow. I did not know.
So tough girl, good match. I thought it was a good match, but women's division continues to leave us a lot to be desired.
Yeah.
All right. So Chris Jericho says his main focus right now in AEW is helping the JAS tell stories. So very interesting in this interview he did with Absolute Geek Podcast. He talked about how he has almost full control to write all the JAS storylines. And he said his main focus right now has for himself involved in the AEW back is to tell those stories. And he said, for right now, my job is to take care of the JS and the stories that we're telling. Eddie Kingston, Santana, unfortunately got hurt. Ortiz, but all that stuff was orchestrated pretty much by me for the last 8 months. That's what I've been concentrating on. He continues to say, so it's all really tied with the JAS. Had I not been in the embolism, there probably wouldn't be a JAS. And had Eddie Kingston not broke his orbital bone, there probably wouldn't be a JAS. Everything happens for a reason. So he's kind of saying, if he didn't have his health issues where he missed all that time, if Eddie Kingston didn't get hurt, there wouldn't be a JAS. And I think at first, I think there was some skepticism. I don't know if you were one of those people that said, man, I'm not into this Jericho appreciation side. It sure has grown on me, and I was definitely rooting for him tonight. I think a heel Jericho with the title would have been much more interesting. Obviously, we got the ending we wanted tonight, but I was definitely like, all right, if Punk's not coming back, I'd rather Jericho as a heel run with the title for a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I was super happy. I jumped off my couch when that music hit because I was not expecting it. And it just feeds back to like what surprises meaning wrestling at the best when you totally don't expect something.
So before we move on from the news, any thoughts on Jericho having full control over what is going on with his character? This is reminiscent of guys in the past. I mean, I'm not saying he has full creative control. Obviously, he's going to lose when he has to lose. But the fact that Tony Khan's given creative freedom, that sounds like a good thing more than a bad thing.
Especially in Jericho's case, he's a very trusted guy who he's not going into business for himself. He's about helping other people at this time, whether it's people in the Jericho Appreciates JAS or against his opponents. He wants to help the young guys all over the business. So I've got very little problem with it. And again, if he comes to Tony with an idea that Tony doesn't like, they're going to talk it out. So, and hopefully if it's a good idea, Jericho wins.
So the other thing I just want to update you guys on cards for next week. So Rampage pretty stacked for Quake by the Lake. So all that stuff's going on. We have Bryan Danielson returning and speaking. We have Hook speaking. The Gun Club versus Bearhausen. So that's Danhausen, the returning Eric Redbeard, formerly known as Eric Rowan from WWE of the Wyatt family. Parker Boudreaux versus Sonny Kiss. Swerve in Our Glory, you get the time to speak. Orange Cassidy versus Ari Daivari. And we have the AAA World Mixed Tag Team Championship on the line. Sammy Guevara and Ty Conti, now known as Ty Mello, versus Dante Martin and Sky Blue. So we're getting a AAA World Mixed Tag Team Championship on the line. At Triple Mania, Ty and Sammy won those titles back. I think it was in February or April, around that time. So pretty stacked card for Rampage. A lot of, I guess, filler, but at least there's things announced for it.
Yeah. Listen, I was excited. I like the little Gun Club little segment in the back tonight, seeing them be down and have that little different of an attitude. And I love the Gun Club, so I'm excited to see where that goes. I finally love the fact that we're getting a little something with them and Danhausen after Danhausen got them over just by calling them the Ass Boys. the best thing that happened to their career was, and they're good, but Danhausen calling them the ass boys has helped propelled them to where they are today.
That's absolutely true. And they things happen for a reason, as Jericho just said in that quote before. And sometimes they're happy accidents. And the ass boy thing was
100%.
a happy accident. I think, they owe Danhausen a couple steak dinners for that.
Yeah, and listen, not only that, but it leads to daddy ass and all these other fun things. So
yeah,
grandpa ass we heard today on
that's true.
Dynamite.
So to put the finishing touches in the news, and I'll pass it over to you so we do our top 3. We have the AEW Dynamite card for next week, which is going to be the Two Bad Chads are going to be there. West Virginia. Yeah. We're going to have possibly the return of Kenny Omega because we have the tournament match, Andrade Rush and Dragon Lee versus the Young Bucks, and we don't know. So it could be whoever it's going to be. They're going to come out and team with the Bucks. So we'll see who it is. Might be Omega, might not be. I think we're leaning towards betting odds being Omega.
Oof. I wonder. I hope it is. I want it to be, but I just have the sick feeling that it's not.
We also have Tony Storm versus Kylan King, and main event, best 2 out of 3 falls, Bryan Danielson versus Daniel Garcia. They're hyping this up as a House of Dragon, Game of Thrones style of booking. So that's all I got. That's the news.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to our top 3. Here we go.
Listen! Yo!
All right. So let's start off with our number 3 moment of the week. Ace, what do you got for me?
I'm going to go with the match from Rampage. It's the AEW World Title Eliminator, Jon Moxley versus Mance Warner. And if you're not familiar with Game Changer Wrestling, well, you should be. And if you're not and you want the information, go watch the fucking GCW show here on the Turnbuckle Tavern. We're going to have another show for you this week. Something you need to check out. Mance Warner is GCW alum. What I really liked about this match, aside from it being hard-hitting and Jon Moxley doing his thing, was they did a little video package for Mance Warner, and they introduced them to the audience and made them feel like he's important. They didn't just throw him in the ring. They showed highlights of the Ric Flair elimination that he won that Battle Royal the night before, or the week before, I should say. So this was a really good match. It's everything you want in a Moxley match, and he has this knack right now of just making guys look better than they are. And I know Mance is a quality wrestler, but he felt like a main event guy, and it was awesome. I love this match.
Okay, I actually never got to see Rampage. I did see Battle of the Belts. So my number 3 from tonight's Dynamite is going to be the whole match, Darby versus Brody, and everything with Sting coming out. It was a solid match. Brody busted open right away.
That was awesome.
I like that. I know I was really hoping Brody would win, but I wasn't unhappy with the way it ended because I feel like it didn't really make Brody look weak. As far as his in-ring singles career and stuff, I thought he still came out strong. You had the whole House of Black back together again for the first time in a long time. Buddy was back. Buddy Matthews was back. Julia Hart was there. Then you get Sting coming out, and you see the makeup on his eye. Kind of curious where this whole thing is going. It was a fun match, and I'm looking forward to seeing this story develop and what the match will be at. I would see. This is where I'm confused now. Really quick, tell me what you think. We're thinking House of Black is going to be in the final of the Trios tournament at the pay-per-view, but it sure seems like they're building to a story of House of Black with Sting and Darby for the pay-per-view.
Totally possible. And if that's where they want to go, I still think there's more to be told with this Sting story. I think right now Miro and Pac are the only ones that have been impervious to this mist in the eye. It's affecting Sting. It's showing up on his eye. So I think we may see a mean streak. I'm not saying full heel turn. I think we may see Sting in some capacity have a little edge to him, and I'm here for that. I mean, I would love a little bit of a Sting edge, not just doing a nostalgia act.
Definitely had more of a mystique to him tonight, Sting, if you noticed.
He did, and
yeah, he was kind of more. I mean, he's always silent, but he was more like serious, more dead, like looking dead straight on at them, and but cut to the Miro promo real quick. What do you think of his promo?
I loved it because the main thing with Miro, first of all, there's been a lot of talk about him not being featured. He liked that tweet saying that he was booked better in WWE. And I know that Andrade did the same thing. So that also kind of ties into this Tony Khan shine coming off. But I do like that they feature him in this spot. Would I like to see Miro more in the ring? Of course. But I think if you're going to use him in that spot, it makes him feel like a big deal. And the fact that he's able to use Malachi's logic and mind games against him, I like where this is going. I don't know where it's going. That's what I like best about my wrestling, when it keeps me guessing, but it makes sense.
Yeah, I certainly don't think what is it? I think trios final will be Kenny and Bucks versus Dark Order. Wow, Dark Order.
Well, that means House of Black would lose, but I mean, if you go with Tom's thought,
yeah,
Darby could cost them the match, and then you go from there.
That's true too. Maybe Darby cost him the match, or Sting cost him the match. Yeah, like I thought it was fun. I loved Miro's line tonight when Julia touched him. Only one woman gets to touch me. The whole thing was fun, but the fact that he's staying WWE booked him better. No, he wasn't the beast he is in WWE that he is here. So I don't necessarily agree with that. However, I will say this. I wonder what Miro's thinking now that Triple H is in charge, because rewind, Rusev is a Triple H guy.
Yeah, and Rusev, when he was in NXT, obviously booked like a monster. He was not wearing shoes. We know guys that wrestle that don't wear shoes are always booked pretty strong. Think about the history of wrestlers right now. Think about the wrestlers that didn't wear shoes. They were all booked pretty strong. Haku, not wearing shoes. He's the toughest SOB I think I know. But do you have someone that didn't wear shoes and he sucked? Riddle's a pretty badass guy, doesn't wear shoes. Jimmy Snuka, badass guy, no shoes.
Yep. So
anyway, I think
it'd be badass not to wear shoes in the ring.
Hell yeah. People can step on your toes.
I think Mullins never wore shoes.
Badass guys.
Yeah.
We're on to something, Tom.
Yeah.
I think Rusev was booked pretty strong in the beginning. But I think just like a lot of guys that were coming up, when they had that chance to make them into a transcendent star, they had two opportunities with Rusev, a.k.a. Miro. It was the John Cena match at WrestleMania that had the chance. They didn't do it. Then they had another chance. By accident, they walked into the Rusev Day thing. Instead of having him win that Rumble, they gave it to Roman. Call an audible that night. You would have had a transcendent starting on the Rusev Day. People forget. Go back and watch that run. He was so goddamn over.
Yeah, that roof would have been blown right off the place.
So, that's how stars are made. And we had this conversation about pivoting and calling an audible and reading the tea leaves and having a feel for where things should go. Man, if they would have made it, if there's a couple decisions that were made, I think and I keep saying it week after week, Riddle was ready to win that championship for Roman on SmackDown. All you got to do is pull the trigger. I'm just saying it. You had the chance to do it. They just don't do that. I think I have trust in Triple H. So I think he will have a knack for feel. And I know you mentioned Vince was out of touch. I think Triple H is definitely more in touch with what people want. Because I think a precursor to the AEW brand that we love was the black and gold NXT, like completely.
And again, people just want good stories. People want something to follow week to week. People want something that ends this week to say, oh shit, I can't wait to see what this means for next week. And it seems like Triple H is bringing that back already. He knows how to tell stories. So he's a fan of the game. I didn't even mean that. He's a fan of the game. But he is. He loves the sport. He loves wrestling. So he knows what we want. And I'm so here to see what he continues to do.
But moral of the story, I think, I would went on a tangent.
I really would not mind seeing a Rusev on a main WWE roster led by Triple H.
Absolutely. And I know they released all the numbers, and I know Tony was saying at the press conference or the media scrum, all the contract information. So he released some dates. All I have in my brain right now, Malachi Black's 2026, Adam Cole's 2026. I'm not sure where Miro is, but man, Triple H having control and creative control over the booking certainly changes the landscape more so than any other move could have, because half the guys that are in AEW, I'm sure some of them are scratching their heads and saying, what if I was still there? Because there's much more content to be had. And I think there was a chance for, if you just waited for a second, think about Karrion Kross. I mean, count your lucky stars. He didn't sign somewhere full time. He now is just, man, perfect spot to be. Perfect timing. He could have signed elsewhere. Say he went to AEW, he'd be just buried on this roster, and they would never use him the way that WWE's. Again, it was a quick segment on SmackDown, but we'll see how it continues.
And here it is. I just found it right now. Miro apparently in March had signed a 4-year contract, leading him to be signed with AEW until 2026.
So he was very complimentary of the deal. If you look at, I remember the article, he was saying how happy he was with Tony and how much freedom he gets for his character. I think there's just frustration that there's not utilization of these guys.
Yeah.
I think that they're not being used on a nightly basis is frustrating because it's hard to have momentum when you're not being pushed in that direction. I think Miro is a victim of just a really talented roster.
Yep.
He could be the guy. It's just he's surrounded by a lot of guys that could be the guy, and that's the problem.
And not to get back on this topic, but just really quick, one quick statement about it. When you finally establish Ring of Honor as its own brand, you move some of the guys over there, gives you more room to work with certain guys in AEW and more room to work with guys in Ring of Honor. Let's move on to our number 2s.
All right, I'll go with my number 2, and it was the main event from tonight. Big match feel, the Lionheart Chris Jericho, fully with the retro presentation, go down to the music. I don't know if Warner owned the Lionheart theme. It wasn't the original Lionheart theme, but whatever, it was still awesome. Great tights. Moxley looked like $1 million. And again, both these guys have great chemistry. This match has been how many years in the making? I forget when the first one was, but it feels like a lifetime ago. These two guys.
It wasn't even a year into AEW.
Yeah. These two guys historically, I had a moment when I was watching this match about the importance that these two guys have on AEW as a brand. And you felt it. It felt like this match was very important. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that the ending was unpredictable. There was a chance Jericho was going to win. There was a chance. And there was also the fact that they gave the match 30 plus minutes. And I think the fact that you have 30 plus minutes makes it feel like anything could happen.
Yes.
And the one thing I want to say too is the fact that they let Moxley kick out of the Judas effect. That was shocking to me. I thought it was over. I thought they would save that for somebody else. That was a big deal. First ever person to kick out of the Judas effect.
So, spoiler, we have the same number 2.
Oh man, look at that.
I went with the same thing. I wasn't shocked. You had your world champion rank out of a finishing maneuver. In a way, Excalibur sold it, saying, Jericho didn't have all behind it.
It got me to pop off the couch. You mentioned popping off the couch for the ending of the night.
Yeah.
But the move had been built up so strong for 3 years that it felt like, because this, if you remember, they were hyping this up going into the Hangman match about he has this new move. It's no one kicks out of it. And I don't know. I mean, it feels like a lost opportunity that someone else didn't kick out of it, because Moxley certainly didn't need it. But if it popped me, it made a moment.
Not wrong, but yeah, I mean, it could have been used for a younger guy that could have used the moment. But I had zero problem with it being a guy like Mox.
It's neither here nor there, but now we have two moves that were the unbreakable moves. The big rig, or it's called the big rig now, but it was called something different in WWE. And then also you have the Judas effect, two moves that have never been kicked out of. Death Before Dishonor, we saw the Briscoes kick out of it. It's only a matter of time before someone kicks out of the One-Winged Angel. No one's kicked out of it yet.
Of course. I mean, that's just the way it goes. But again, it makes it fun for when it does happen.
Absolutely.
But so I love that. I love that match tonight. They brought it all. I love seeing Jericho go right back into wrestling in that style. It just shows you how good Jericho is, that at this age he went right back to being, the Lion Tamer.
Yeah, the Mexico version of Jericho, the New Japan version of Jericho. It was awesome to see, and down to the presentation, that the old school spray painted vest, everything down to his signs. And that's also the difference between a presentation on WWE. In AEW, they're willing to accept Chris Jericho was a star elsewhere, obviously. They're able to embrace the history of wrestling and just accept he was also a huge star prior to this. He's not just the Chris Jericho here in AEW. Mm-hmm. There's a history to this. It felt very important. Like, why else wouldn't you use it? History makes things feel important.
Yeah. I love history, and I love when it's respected and when not treated like it didn't happen. So,
thank you, Tyson Shatter Machine. That's what it was. Absolutely.
We'll be seeing more of that in WWE too. More history being focused on. We got to see the Harley race robe this week.
Amazing. That little nuance made the match feel important.
That never would have happened in a Vince's WWE. Legends are being respected already. Not to
go on a complete different diatribe about this. Mentioning Killer Kowalski on air. It hasn't been mentioned since Triple H's run through his main event. They used to mention Killer Kowalski all the time. He's been trained by Killer Kowalski. It makes these guys feel like, wow, Killer. And then Googling Killer Kowalski and looking at his badass face and being like, damn, Ciampa was trained by a guy named Killer Kowalski.
Yeah,
crazy.
100% agree.
All right. My number one here is the coffin match between Brody King and Darby Allin. I know you alluded to it before with the full package with the Sting stuff going on, but was I supposed to go? You were supposed to do number one first?
No, you could. I'm shocked that's your number one.
I just love the two of these guys' chemistry. Brody King and Darby Allin have a knack, and I know we mentioned before, Darby Allin has a knack for just bumping all over the place for everybody. But I just love the way these guys click because Brody King, as I mentioned before, weeks and weeks ago when he first got that big win in the Battle Royal and then wrestled Moxley and looked like $1 million, he feels like the next big bad. He comes out, presentation is on point, the face paint, the entrance. He has a main event feel to him. And I think anytime you want to turn the heat on somebody to have a contender, similar to the 90s where Hogan had all these guys like Earthquake or whoever that you put in there in that spot, all it takes is a few weeks of just making Brody King look a badass and choking people out. I think you have a future main eventer in here. And I know I say that about a lot of guys, but the presentation of Brody, even in a losing effort, he still looked very, very strong. Oh, yeah. Everything about this, Matt, Darby Allin is like a rubber ball, man. It's like throwing a rubber ball on a wood floor, bouncing around everywhere, zero regard for his body. And Brody King too. This is a big man taking risks that he takes. Everything about this match I loved. Even the ending was cool. And the ending had to be done absolutely correctly, perfect in the right time, or it would look super lame. The fact that he fell off with the choke and he fell straight in, and then Excalibur exclaimed, "Hole in one." It just felt like kind of not a fluke win for Darby, but enough of him to not make Brody look weak. And I know there's that delicate line you have to ride. I love this match. And I'm also just a sucker for House of Black and stuff, as you know. So that was my number one.
My number one moment of the week is when that music hit tonight. And CM Punk came running out after the Mox and Jericho match. Because, we had discussed this tonight when I was recording the debate show beforehand. Like, hey, we don't even know. I think it's actually on a debate show too. Who is Mox going to fight at the main event? And I believe Chad said we know it's not CM Punk. Nobody believed it was CM Punk because CM Punk was walking around the cons, icing his foot, playing it up to all of us.
He pulled a Dusty Rhodes, man, with the broken leg. Cody didn't even know his leg wasn't broken when the Four Horsemen broke his leg.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, he played up that foot at Comic-Con. He was stopping, acting like he was in pain, icing it. And there he comes. Like, tonight, I hear the Cult of Personality music hit. Shocks the shit out of me. So I jumped off my couch, totally stoked because my man is back and we got the face off we've been waiting for, him and Mox. I'm so stoked he's back. I love the little run around the ring he did, hopping on one foot, acting like showing us, hey guys, I've been better than you thought I was. And here it is. We now know what the main event is of All Out's going to be, and all of a sudden the interest in All Out has just went up.
Yeah, and
the other thing that excites me is opens the door to start the MJF return. Could be at All Out.
I would love it. And full transparency, the reason why I was in my number one, I didn't want to have.
You didn't even have it on your list.
I changed it. I changed it because I didn't want us to have. I wanted to have decent conversation because this moment was awesome. There's no doubt about it. I just went strictly wrestling because I want to be a little different. I want our list to be different. Yeah. But when that music hit, like you mentioned, it wasn't expected. And I think that's a big piece of this. Feels like the Kenny Omega return next week, if it does happen, feels it's going to get a huge pop. But I think if Kenny would have shown up to save somebody, it would have got a bigger reaction. I think there's that. Makes me think they're going to bring back Kenny to be a heel. But going back to Punk, he looked well rested. He looked great. He was moving around in a way that we haven't seen him move around in a long time. Feels like a long time at least. So the fact that he was very active in the ring and taking spots and he was dishing out offense makes me very confident that we're going to see a very memorable match in Chicago and a lot of conversations to start. I mean, they're going to have both titles in the ring. It's going to make for a cool moment. Them face to face. There's a lot of history there with CM Punk and the Shield because the Shield's debut happened with CM Punk in Hell in a Cell with Ryback. Like that, there is history. And obviously they don't need to know that because the history just recent is enough to build up this feud. But damn, man, this was a special moment when the music hit. It saved All Out. Like, because I know in the chat there was doom and gloom about the build to All Out, and all of a sudden you turn around and Punk's there. You have the build to your main event, and this is what we were waiting for to put it back on track. And I think we're back on track. There is some more building to be done in 3.5 weeks, 2.5 weeks, whatever we're at this point. But man, Punk, Moxley in the main event, that is a special moment, and it's gonna be an awesome match.
It's going to be an awesome match. I wonder if it might be a ladder match.
For the moment, probably I would say no, but for like the visual
titles. You have the 2 titles hanging up there. So I'm just guessing. I have no idea. They did it with the TNT title when that was separated, when they had the interim title. So I don't know if it's going to be a ladder match. It'd be fun if it was a ladder match. But damn, I can't wait to see promos between these 2 guys.
There's definitely precedent set that it could be a ladder match. I definitely don't want it to be.
You don't want it to be?
No, it won't be a bad match if it's a ladder match. I just want to see these guys go out there and have one of those hard-hitting matches that we've been seeing from Moxley. And I think Punk needs that first match to come back to be next level. And I think because he's trying to shake off the rust of the last little run he had there, the Hangman match had his struggles when he won the title. Obviously, he hurt himself. And then the match with FTR, he botched a couple things. I think he has a lot to prove to himself in this main event. And I think Moxley is the right opponent because, as I mentioned before, he's firing on all cylinders, making guys look great. He made Mance Warner look great. He made Takeshita look great. Tonight, Jericho again, that match was awesome. So Moxley is a kind of a common denominator in all these things, and he's going to bring out the best in Punk, and I think this match is going to be awesome. But if it's going to be that gritty style that you expect from Moxley, and I think Punk's going to lean into that, and that's going to be special.
Do you think it's a giving that Punk wins, or do you think it's up in the air? Do you think Mox has a shot at winning?
I would say it's probably 80-20, but if Punk's completely healthy, it's back on track now. Okay. You're on the road. This is the road. Obviously, Punk gets hurt. You have to go on this side track, little side quest. Moxley wins the title. It's all good and fun. But now it's time to get back on the main highway back to the story you want to tell. And I think the end of the story is Punk is champion. And I think that whatever they were going to tell, the story is going to continue. And they're going to continue where they were supposed to go it all out originally. So, yeah, back on track. Long-term storytelling.
I'm so excited for this. I was so glad to see Punk. His beard looked like it could have used a little trim, but that's okay. I'm so glad I didn't see this on any dirt sheets today or see it pop up on Twitter. So happy. So my boy's back, and I'll be in Chicago in a little over 2 weeks. So be in Chicago with the hometown boy again, almost a year later from when I was there for his return. We're gonna have a Tavern meetup there. That's what I'm understanding. Yeah, so we'll have a bunch of us. Hawk will be there. You'll be there. Couple beers. Yeah. Couple good tickets to the show. Hopefully, we're gonna be enjoying a really good moment. I'll drink a hard drink. We could do shots. We're gonna have White Claws. You're gonna have a White Claw and you're gonna enjoy it. Crap. Yeah, come on, just one. It's terrible. No, they taste just terrible. One. I'd rather drink a beer. All right. Well, literally can't stand the taste of seltzer. All right. Well, we're gonna get you to have a black cherry White Claw. That's what that's my goal. That's your goal. Well, if you're buying, fair. That's fair. All right. I'll try it one more time. But man, I think they put all that on track. And I know there's again doom and gloom in the chat, and I know there's doom and gloom over the build up. We still have a whole card to build. It's one thing that gets us excited for the thing. Like, it's always great to have that one thing. Let's start building to some of the other matches. Okay, we know we're gonna have a match for the trios title. We know. I guess it's looking maybe now like it's going to be Tony Storm against Thunder Rosa again. Where I think Tony Storm's probably going to get the win here. Yeah, we don't know. I would think so too, but we have no idea who FTR is going to be facing. There's a lot of time left to see who it's going to be. Wardlow is he going to be fighting? Is he going to be Jay Lethal? Is it going to be? I think that's done. I think they put the finishing touches on that. So. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see. We have so much more. Jade, is she going to have a match? She can be fighting Athena probably. Ricky Starks, I guess, against Powerhouse Hobbs. Yeah, Jungle Boy Christian. That's probably. Jungle Boy Christian's another great man. Hey, listen, what we just named doesn't sound too shabby. Let's get a good build up for the next couple of weeks because it doesn't sound bad. I was worried about the lack of main event, but now that they have the main event sewn in place, I think you could build around the trios championships, and then you can also build around the main event. Everything falls into place after that. I think it's important to start putting the pedal to the metal, though. We saw with Forbidden Door, they were able to do it pretty quickly. So, let's get on it, though. We started it right after, though, Double or Nothing. They don't have as much time here, so they got to build the rest of those matches now. So, again, the card we just rattled off, probably pretty close to what it's going to be. Doesn't sound bad, but let's do some major push in the next couple of weeks, guys. But what's going on with the tag titles too with Swerve and Our Glory? That's the other thing. Oh yeah, I said the thing that was frustrating to me though is seeing a waste of time with Aaron Solo in a match. And I know I mentioned it before, but having Ricky Starks wrestle Aaron Solo, it's pointless. Yeah.
Why are we having that? Like, we don't need, like, Ricky Starks, the momentum was built from that last week. And I know you want to keep, to me, this is exactly what WCW is in 1996, 1997, 1998. This is exactly what they did. And I know a lot of us are used to the WWF, WWE style booking where it's completely different. But if you watch Nitros from 1996, as I'm doing on a weekly basis, for better or for worse, this is exactly how they book. A lot of the main stars go out there and they have squash matches, and that's how they build these guys into big stars. That's how Eric Bischoff felt that it could be done. And we watch the Giant every week destroy Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and then he wrestles Ming, and then it's guys that matches don't have any sort of substance to it. It's just squash matches. It's like a Giant infomercial for these guys to get their shit in. But for me, I want long-term storytelling. I want Ricky Starks shooting an angle off of that. Like, let's have Hobbs get involved in this. Why wasn't he involved?
Between the main event, between the opening match and the main event tonight, everything else just felt like filler on tonight's show, and it could have been used to start building to the pay-per-view. I mean, they have 2 weeks left to get this whole trios tournament done, because the final match is going to be at the pay-per-view, right?
Yes, and it's not so much of an even tournament. There's like 2 teams on each side, so it's literally just like a collection of teams, not a tournament.
So it's only 2 matches to get to that?
I'll pull up the card again, but again, there's like, I think 8 teams, so there's 4 matchups, and then the 2 semifinals, and then the finals.
So it is okay. So yeah, but still, they need to have multiple matches a week to get this done. Multiple matches a show.
Well, they have Rampage, which they'll probably do. Obviously we said next week at Dynamite they're going to have that first match, but you can get that done pretty quickly. But feels a little bit rushed, and I think we need to have meaningful stories to. And the pay-per-view is sold out already, and it's going to be electric, and the crowd's going to be all into it.
Yeah.
But I just feel like they waste time on shit with Aaron Solo. I don't want to see him on my TV. The Factory is on Dark every week. For a casual fan that doesn't watch Dark, who is this guy that Ricky Starks is giving offense to? It wasn't even a squash match. Aaron Solo got some offense in on Ricky Starks.
And J Bone's right. It was a waste of an hour. It was a total waste of an hour tonight.
They need to maximize every single second on Dynamite, and they don't do that. It feels very wasted, especially too. And I know Hawk made the point kind of tongue in cheek during the main event when they're hyping up battle bots during the main event. And I know I didn't mention this during Jericho Mox, and I completely forgot in like the mix of this match being really good. How in the hell is there picture-in-picture when the world champion is threatening to tap out in the walls of Jericho? How is that even possible? How do you not just double up on commercials during the Jade match and the Aaron Solo match in the middle of the car and be like, we're going commercial free in the last hour? I understand time slots and all that.
Last half hour.
God damn, like, what? We cannot have picture-in-picture because kayfabe goes out the window. And I know Lance Storm talks about this on Figure 4 Radio all the time, saying, like, I want to believe it's real. And AEW makes me feel like, wink, wink, it's not real. And everybody knows it's not. But there's got to be some suspension of disbelief for a second.
Yeah.
The fact that the match isn't ending picture-in-picture, it's infuriating. I was so mad about that because the match had such good flow to it. So.
That's hysterical, J-Bone. He saw QT Marshall begging for change of Marietta this week. Yeah, the change would be him being let go from AEW. That's the change. So we don't have to see him on our TV anymore.
But side note, the shirts that QT Marshall wear are probably the worst shirts I've ever seen. I apologize if anyone wears those shirts.
That surprise you?
It's like a cheap version of, what's the cop's name in Dexter? Like the Miami Vice type of, with the goatee. Like he wears the same Miami shirts with the cigar. I don't know. It's horrible.
But yeah, so I mean, let's see them built in. Yes, and Young Anthony, words of wisdom. Fuck the Factory and the Trustbusters. I don't disagree at all. But you know, let's tell everybody our So let's tell let's get to our match of the week.
Angel, right?
It's time for the main event.
All right, let's just spoil it now for people. We both have the same match this week.
We do, and if you guys didn't have this match, what were you watching? I mean, holy shit. Battle of the Belts got no build at all. And this match blew me away. Blew me out of the water. Whatever you want to say.
Me too.
Oh, man, it was unbelievable.
Claudio.
Do the reveal? You do the reveal.
Claudio versus, I'm never going to say his name right.
Say it right. You got this.
Takeshita?
No. Come on. You did perfectly before Takeshita.
Takeshita, there it is. Takeshita. We got Freems in the house too. Everybody's
What up,
joining us from
Freems?
the Tavern now. What's up, Freems? Now we got 2 viewers on Twitch. One's me and one's Freems. Takeshita. Oh,
Takeshita.
I'm never gonna remember that. Oh, it's Ta and Ta with just a Kesh in the middle.
Yeah, a little bit of cash.
All right, Freems. I might be able to remember that. Jericho versus Mox. Oh, did you not watch Claudio versus Takeshita?
It was a good young Anthony Jericho Mox was a very good match. It is a very. If you want to talk about stakes, the AEW Championship means way more than that Ring of Honor Championship. But the quality of the match, Takeshita and Claudio, they went out there, and this is what was missing in the version of Claudio that was Cesaro in WWE. They let him go all out, and Takeshita was keeping up.
Yeah,
the match was electric. I could not believe what we were seeing on TV, and me among like 12 people watched it because it did such a poor job of building up. I think they mentioned Battle of the Belts once on television. Go back and watch it if you missed it. I know most of you did.
Is it going to need another one of my rants to how they need to fix the Battle of the Belts for AEW? I said it after the first one. I said it after the second one. And it was the same thing with this one. It doesn't feel special. It's supposed to be a special. It feels like another hour of Rampage, which is not a terrible thing. But number one, you got to make it live because me and you talked about this. Rampage is must see when it's live. When it's pre-taped wrestling, pre-taped is not as exciting as taped wrestling. Pre-tape Rampage on Dynamite, go live for Battle of the Belts. Change up the stage. Make it feel different. You can't have the same stage. Change the lighting. There's so much you could do. Change the ramp. We've seen them use special ramps like at Grand Slam last year. That made that feel special. Let's change it up, guys. Let's give it a different feel so it feels like something I have to turn into. Because they're not making it feel like anything I need to see. You got to go back again. I'm saying the same stuff I said before. I'm just rewinding. It doesn't feel like a Saturday night's main event. It doesn't feel like a Clash of Champions. It's an extra hour of Rampage. It's an extra hour of Rampage. No reason. I mean, sure, we got a great match by watching it, but it did not making it feel like it's something I need to see.
So what I will say,
have you ever even seen a title change on a Battle of the Belts?
The TNT Championship. That's it.
Okay. Oh, right. That was
that wasn't even supposed to happen because Cody had COVID.
Oh, that was the Dustin versus
Sammy match. Yeah.
So realistically, we've never really seen a title change.
Maybe no, you're right. Nothing. You're right. But the thing I'll say about Battle of the Belts, and I'm again right in the mix of 1996. This is cut from the exact cloth of WCW. This is where Tony's fandom gets in the way. I know you said it's not like Clash of Champions. It kind of is in the 1996 era where it's taped, nothing happens. It just has a different logo over the top of it. It's not. It's an expanded Rampage, as you said. Clash of Champions. It was an expanded version of WCW Saturday Night, and they put a branding on it, and this has a number. And when we do this at this point, when we have Clash of Champions, and I think we're gonna have another one coming up, and we just do a 3-parter because it's not even worth having it take control of one of the shows. We just add it on top because it's so meaningless. Nothing ever happens at Clash of Champions. And I'm not saying that makes it exclusive where nothing can happen at Battle of the Belts, because you're right. It should feel special. It's called Battle of the Belts for a reason. Belts should change hands. And I think Anthony said in the chat.
Between the pay-per-views. After a pay-per-view is over, you build to Battle of the Belts.
Well, that's why Quake by the Lake should have felt special tonight. And I know they had 2 good matches. It was sandwiched in between a lot of crap.
Yeah,
we had the great main event, great opening match.
If you want to save time, just watch the first match and the last match.
Yeah, you didn't miss anything in the middle.
Save an hour. And look, Anthony, like
that's all you need
in hand
right there.
You need to go watch the Takeshita. I got it. Takeshita versus the Claudio match because it was off the charts good. It's the best match I've ever seen Claudio Cesaro in.
Bold statement, but I mean,
well, I haven't seen a lot of his other stuff either.
Recency bias has me kind of agreeing with you, but I'd have to really let it marinate for a couple weeks before
I haven't seen his prior Ring of Honor run, and I never really saw him in NXT. So
fair.
So as far as what I've seen out of Claudio / Cesaro, it is the best match. I didn't know
the handcuffs are off for sure. He was able to do his thing. And Takeshita again, I was more impressed with Takeshita.
I love them both. Like they both had an amazing match, and it almost had me believing for a second. I started to think, is he going to lose? Is Claudio going to lose here?
A lot of good near falls in this match. I think they have a future. I'm not saying it's going to be an AEW star, but Takeshita is going to be a huge star in wrestling. I think if New Japan Pro Wrestling is smart, they're going to be like, whether he signed with DDT or not long-term, not sure what the contract details are, but him being kind of a transfer between AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling, New Japan really needs that transcendent star because Okada's not getting any younger. Naito's not getting any younger. Kota Ibushi's gone. They need a Japanese star in New Japan Pro Wrestling. It sounds funny to say. They need somebody. And Takeshi's like next man up. I feel like he's ready for superstardom, and New Japan Pro Wrestling has been pretty light on quality, I would say. G1's been pretty good. They had a good show the other night, but G1's been kind of lacking. They really need Takeshita. I feel like if I was Gato, I'd be like, I want Takeshita full time in New Japan Pro Wrestling.
I just want to comment because I've heard about these matches in NXT, Anthony, and I heard they were absolutely amazing.
And young Anthony, correct me if I'm wrong, Cesaro Zayn was the opening match at that first takeover, correct? That's the first ever NXT takeover. I'm pretty sure.
Wow. That's interesting.
I may be wrong. Anthony is our de facto WWE guy here that knows the history
I
of
just
that.
have a little brainstorm in my head because I think back to how great the Zayn and Owens feud was in NXT and how they tried to revisit it on the main roster and it was terrible. I would love to see them revisit it now with Triple H here and his version of Kevin Owens we saw on Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Owens, that was one of the more memorable moments in the old black and gold NXT where Kevin Owens destroyed and had a ref stoppage. That's how you create a monster.
Yeah.
Ref stoppages are not often done, especially for a guy that's your world champion. And I know they're really good friends. NXT Raw, there you go.
There you go. Send me some links. I want to see those matches, or tell me where I can find
It's
them.
on Peacock. It's a NXT Arrival.
Where? You can't
Peacock.
search friggin' Peacock it like you could the network anymore to find it.
Just go to NXT, go to WWE, go to NXT, and then go to all the takeovers. They have the full list of them.
Okay. But
that one's worth checking out for sure.
I remember the Rumble. I think it was when Kevin Owens first was called up, and then all of a sudden Sami Zayn had a surprise appearance, and how they started brawling in the ring.
It was awesome.
Yeah. So I love.
But
Sami
I mean,
Zayn. I'm a huge
it's just challenging right now because Sammy's doing such great stuff right now with the bloodline. I wouldn't want to pull him away from it just to revisit something
right now. But you got something down the line. It doesn't have to happen right away.
100%. I think Sammy's been doing such a good job with what he's been doing.
He wants the tag team championship run with Sami Zayn. So
love it. I mean,
there you go.
Maybe we'll even see an appearance of El Generico on the WWE brand.
Hey, how about
anything is possible?
Oh,
we got Freem's getting angry.
Yeah, fuck you all.
No, I agree with Freem's. I was saying I agree, but the NXT one is fucking awesome too.
The Ring of Honor, I fought there too. Was that when
Claudio had hair too?
Did he really?
He had hair. Yeah, he used to have hair.
I'll tell you, how smart or how happy do you think Kevin Owens is now that he didn't jump ship?
He looks very smart, and I understand he got a lot of the boo birds. People were expecting him to jump over in his contract, and it seemed like the obvious choice because him and AEW was cookie cutter. They had built-in storylines. You felt like it was ready to go.
Yeah, but
he played the waiting game, and I'm not saying he knew what was going to happen because who knew? Nobody knew. No one could have predicted this back in January and said,
"No way,
the whole world's going to be turned upside down as far as wrestling goes, and Triple H is going to have creative control." But I think there was, even under the Vince McMahon regime, there was a lot of, I guess, pressure on Kevin Owens to be a main event guy. But I think he earned the respect of everybody around him because, I mean, think about even under Vince, he got that spot against Stone Cold. Like, they're not just going to give that to anybody. Yeah. So I think on top of that, he has the trust of the old guard. And on top of that, Triple H already loved him from the NXT days. Goddamn. Like, they're going to strap the rocket to him again. And he got that one Universal title reign back how many years ago when he was kind of sided with Triple H, and they cost whoever was champion at the time, or even forget, Kevin Owens was champion, but that was a nice little time we had there. And I'm looking forward to more of that again.
Me too. It's fun right now. Punk is back again. Is this the beginning of all the unhealth? Well, I mean, Brian Danielson is back. Healthy. I have to look down where they've corrupted our minds. JR's mind. Everybody's mind is just corrupt by going to Daniel Bryan. And
well, all of a sudden, we get Kenny Omega back?
Yeah.
CM Punk. You're going to get Bryan Danielson back. Well, he is back. Adam Cole, Malachi Black. All of a sudden, the injuries are getting a little bit better. And what looked like doom and gloom a couple weeks ago, it's like, oh, the roster is back to where it was.
Yeah, and listen, we've never had a problem with the quality of a pay-per-view from AEW. No matter how poor the build-up was, the quality of matches is always there. But damn it, let's get those stories rolling. I think Tony Khan should make a pact to himself. I'm not signing anybody new for 6 months. Let me work with what I have and set some groundwork here.
It's like Brokeback Mountain, though. He can't quit signing new people. He can't resist. That's like you not buying the newest, drops at the Comic-Con, like the San Diego Comic-Con drops. Like, you're not going to buy it because I have to finish up setting up my display in my basement. You have to have them all. You have to. Tony Khan wants them all.
I just went down a whole card for All Out. Me and Ace, I just rattled it off to him what I thought it could be, and it sounded pretty good. Oh, am I going to do it again? Sure, I'll do it again. Christian versus Jungle Boy. We're going to get Ricky Starks versus Hobbs. We're going to get Punk versus Moxley. Probably a ladder match. I'm guessing a ladder match. We're getting Thunder Rosa versus
Tony Storm.
I think we're going to see. I don't. As much as I want the House of Black to win a trios title, I think it seems like they're setting up for something with House of Black and Sting and Darby at the pay-per-view. Unfortunately, I'd rather see them win the trios title. We're going to get a trios title match. I have no idea. Maybe Swerve and the Glory versus FTR, and FTR gets to add the AEW belts to their repertoire. That's just a total guess because I'm not sure there. But the other stuff, they're just kind of looking into what we've seen. So,
yeah, I mean, I can't really poke holes in what the booking decisions, because again, we haven't seen any sort of seeds laid for that, and it's kind of a shame too, because we've had in the past, go to last year's All Out, considered one of the best pay-per-views of all time,
100%.
And even the Full Gear build towards Kenny and Hangman, there was so much behind it that it was a foregone conclusion the match you're getting. And I know we like unpredictability in our wrestling, but I think a lot was on hold for the Punk stuff, and I think he's probably going to say he didn't know. But maybe it's true. Maybe he really didn't know if he'd be back in time. So they didn't want to make a decision and build up him versus Mox, because I don't think they wanted to save it for Minnesota. If they could have announced it 2 weeks ago, I think they would have. I don't think they knew if Punk would be cleared to wrestle.
Right from the beginning, I heard stories, the injury he had and his surgery he had, he would be back in time for All Out. So it's just funny that it's lining up to that now. Now, young Anthony, I have no problem with Tony versus Thunder in the match. I think the match will be fine. It's just the promos that are going to be total shit for the next couple of weeks. And I think you have to, as good as Thunder is in the ring, she's not a great champion, and they need to take that belt off of her now.
The one thing I did recognize from watching Raw and SmackDown, so much emphasis on the women's division. I know it's Bayley and Dakota and Io. Yeah, the three of them. And then also with Alexa and man, Bianca Belair feels like she's a huge star. Just the six of those women, they outshine every single person on the AEW women's roster by a mile. And I think Jade right now is the main star in all of women's wrestling in AEW, but no one's even close to where Bianca is. Like, just the reaction she gets, the raw emotion she has in the ring. She's so, the women's division in WWE is so much better and well constructed, and it's only going to get better under Triple H. That's the scary part. It was already better under Vince's outdated regime. Imagine when you put Triple H behind it, they're going to blow the women's division out of the water.
I really feel like it's only improved lately. I mean, the talent was there. I don't feel like it was being utilized properly in WWE.
But they had transcendent stars that AEW can't even dream of making. Like, no matter what they do.
I just don't think they were being used properly. I think it was horrible.
That's a fair point. Yeah, it's a fair point. I just think, go down the list of these stars.
And
any of those stars, even like the fourth or fifth best star in WWE, would be the number one de facto in AEW because of the fact, maybe Jade, but Jade is sort of a big fish in a smaller pond of women's division. I'm not saying AEW is the small pond. I'm saying the women's division has been absolutely garbage outside of Britt Baker's run.
Hey, look, they bring in Ruby Soho, and what has she done? She's been nothing better than she was in WWE, really.
And for the casual fan watching, look at it through a kayfabe set of eyes. Ruby Soho was a jobber in WWE, and she goes into AEW, and she competes for the title, but she loses. But still, like, she's competing for the AEW Women's Championship. Like,
in AEW, she feels like more than a glorified jobber.
Yeah, she has been, and it's odd because she came in a little pomp and circumstance. Yeah, she felt 100%. Like she was the third debut that night. That was like, oh shit, she's here. And what happened?
Yeah, it's true.
Freems is 100% right.
They had a couple of them for a little bit. It seemed like they were starting to build some stories in the women's division outside of the title, and it fell apart so fast. I don't even remember what it was now.
No, I 100% agree.
Yeah, that's true.
And WWE has this knack of creating, and it may just be, and I know Extra Cooler was saying this on their.
WWE has this knack of building women's stars. Is that what you're going to say? Or Hunter has this knack of building?
I was going to say not even just women's stars, about presenting things and making them feel big. So outside of all the booking decisions and stuff, when they want to present something and make it feel important, whether it be WrestleMania or Clash at the Castle or SummerSlam, when they present something on a stage, it feels fucking big and massive. And that's the thing they do really well. And that's what AEW doesn't have. They don't have that behind them. When SummerSlam, for as fun as it was, I mean, outside of that, just showing up in Nashville, if you're a casual fan, just turning it on and saying, like, I'm going to check it out tonight, it felt so important because they're in a football stadium. It's just that everything about it feels important. You mentioned the stage at Battle of the Belts has not changed. That plays a part. Like, that really does play a part in making events feel special. And WWE does that so much better than AEW, and it's quite clear.
Yeah, that's so true. That's why people say when WWE does it right, it's so good.
I think I'm coming down with Fed brain. I don't know what's going on. Triple H has me hot and bothered with the WWE. I don't know what's going on. But it's a beautiful thing. I love it. Wrestling is so much fun.
But I'll admit, like, I was like, oh man, I'm really enjoying WWE right now. AEW has been meh. And then CM Punk comes back tonight, and I'm like, oh fuck yes, AEW. So
but this is how it's supposed to be.
I want to watch both shows. I want to love both shows.
It's been a while since it's been very one-sided for my fandom. It's been like AEW continues to knock it out of the park, and then WWE is like, I'll tune in for the guys I like, and it feels like I'm nitpicking more than anything. I want to see them both at the same level and challenging each other, because the product we're going to get out of this, it benefits the fans. People forget, and it's going to benefit the talent. Don't forget that. But the fans, we're going to get better product, and that's the best part about this. People are losing sight of that when they want to have the tribalism bullshit. Just root for good wrestling. And we're in a golden age right now with the talent on both sides.
Yes, it's so true. I'm trying to open my Discord streams. Just hang on a second.
So while you're doing that, Anthony says in here, AEW banks on the fans knowing their big shows and matches are important. WWE goes the extra length to show the fans why it is important, even if they overdo it. You're right. Because the thing is, they do overdo certain things where they beat things into your head over and over again, showing you highlights of why this match is happening. And again, it can get redundant for the fans that have been around for the whole ride. But that also goes a really long way. AEW not only banking on fans thinking it's a big show, but they do that with storylines too. They assume you know the history on being the elite. Like you're supposed to know the Hangman and the Bucks history outside of the AEW television story. They're assuming you know everything that went on behind the scenes with Adam Cole and Kenny Omega. But if you didn't know the history, why do they hate each other? Just because they showed up at the same time, that Adam Cole showed up when Kenny was leaving. So I think WWE does a better job of, I wouldn't say dumbing it down for people, but they do a better job of over explaining, where AEW just takes for granted that a lot of their fans are internet based and intelligent fans, and they watch a lot of the product. But if you want to grow to the next level, you have to dumb it down and you have to explain it so someone that only watches Dynamite understands the stories and why they're important.
Let's welcome back to the show for the first time in many, many weeks, Freems.
What's up?
TV/Freems.
What's up? Hold on, let me fix this situation I got going on in my head. Holy hell.
What's going on, Freems?
Oh, no, we don't want to be in your head there, Freems. There we go. Twitch.tv/Freems. There is the link in case you don't know it by now. Check it.
What's up? What's up, guys? Yeah, it's a good time to be a wrestling fan. WWE's looking a lot better. AEW was awesome.
I'll say this, the biggest thing that disappointed me with AEW and Forbidden Door, I wish they would have had vignettes explaining to me each week about certain wrestlers and teaching me a little bit about them.
I mean,
that's another thing that WWE has an advantage on with having a longer television time, is they can show more packages between like on their show.
That's true.
That's how they do it. They do it through packages, you know?
Yep. Yeah, and they're a master at the packages.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen AEW can put a good package together.
Oh, yeah.
And do it like in a different way. Like, look at what they're doing with Ring of Honor, for example. The video packages they put together leading up to the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they do a good job with the road to whatever pay-per-view when they show that special, but it's always following Dynamite. And guess what? We do the show after this, so I never really watched the road to whatever pay-per-view they're showing. So they should just show that. And I know, Freems, you're saying the extra hour of Raw feels excessive, but when they have to beat something in your head, they could show it over and over again. Think about all those video packages they kept showing on the pre-show of SummerSlam. They kept showing those special packages of these like elite stars. They showed Lashley, they showed Charlotte. I think they showed Kevin Owens as well. It made them feel like if you were tuning in for the first time, as Anthony's saying, you would feel like, oh, this is the guy I got to root for. He's important. Look at the highlight package of Charlotte. She's been in all these big moments.
I've never said it feels excessive. I've always been on the pro. I think 3 hour, 2 hour are two good show lengths. I've always said that from the beginning of me being on this. I think it's great.
Raw doesn't even feel 3 hours the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were going based off of when, like, in my opinion, when I felt like WWE was not as fun to watch, 3 hours felt like a long time.
Right.
100%.
But right now it doesn't feel like 3 hours. It's because you're engaged the whole time. It feels fine.
There's less flashbacks throughout the show. You know, we've seen them cut back on that now that Triple H is in charge. There's less of that filler crap on Raw. It's more wrestling shit too. Like we're getting more wrestling on WWE TV than we've seen in a long time.
Also think about go ahead.
I was gonna say, think about the way Dynamite was constructed tonight. They all feel like separate segments that could be just pushed and pulled out of the event and moved away from each other. Think about Raw. Everything intertwines from the opening segment to the end. That's when the best shows are being told because you have the storyline interweaving with all these different matches, and it feels like you're building towards that main event. Think about the Ruthless Aggression era, the Attitude era. The opening segment always sets the table for the end of the night, and you see those segments in between. There's got to be some sequential order to the way the show flows, and with Dynamite the last few weeks, there's no sequence. You could literally have any of these matches in any order, and it would still feel exactly the same, and that's not a good thing.
I hate to say it, no matter how good the matches are on it, it feels like I'm watching Thunder.
On Dynamite?
Rampage, like the
Rampage. 100%.
Rampage.
Yeah.
And again, we talked about this with the Chads earlier tonight. Apparently, I don't know if either of you guys had seen Being in the Elite this week, but apparently there was a thing where it was a cliffhanger at the end of Being the Elite with a little clip where I forgot who it was, went to somebody's door and he was talking to him, and we didn't see who it is. Like they should have these segments from Being the Elite running through Dynamite, like you know. Build it up to the end, and then Dynamite ends with that clip, and it's a cliffhanger. You have to tune in next week to see who was at the door. So
this is just obviously pure speculation on my end. I feel like AEW is like banking on the idea that like their fans are going to go to YouTube, and I think it was a good experiment. I mean, a lot of fans do that, but a lot of them don't. A lot of them won't even watch.
But here's the thing: diehard fans will do that. For the
Right.
casual fans, you have to put that storyline on TV to catch the interest, so you want to come back next week.
I mean, it's the only way you're going to turn casual fans into diehard fans too.
100%. 100%.
I mean, Anthony's 100% correct. You should not be running major angles on a YouTube channel.
100%.
I mean, unless you want to prioritize AEW Dark, don't do it to Being the Elite because half the shit, it's goofy and it's good for what it is. And I love Being the Elite. I've been watching since the beginning. But you can't run serious AEW storylines and interweave it because then it becomes, all right, well, I'm supposed to take these characters seriously on screen here, but they're making insider jokes, tongue-in-cheek, very break the third wall type of stuff, and it blurs the line. I'm okay with Being the Elite doing the thing because I think AEW was born out of that. Really, if you pull the thread on that, Being the Elite was sort of the seedlings that sprouted all of this.
But how about this? They don't even advertise Being the Elite on Dynamite or mention it and tell people to go watch it. How about you promote it then a little bit? How about you show a clip from it?
They have their own universe. They have a Being the Elite champion. It's a whole thing, but I'm okay with it living on its own as a thing, similar to Up, Up, Down, Down with Apollo, Xavier Woods, whatever his real name is.
Austin Creed.
Excellent
Apollo
point.
was his name on NXT back in the day, but there's no storylines being shot in Up, Up, Down, Down. Like, oh, they were mad at each other with the video games. Like, we shouldn't come on. That lives on its own on an island by itself. It's entertainment.
Young Anthony is spitting fire tonight. He's like,
Young Anthony killing it.
Episodes of Being the Elite. It hasn't helped or hurt my experience, but the more you tap into the YouTube show, the more you alienate your fans. And he's 100% correct. The diehards are going to get it, and the people who don't watch it weekly are going to feel left out.
Well, I think also too, and go and listen. I always will tout this. I listen to Lance Storm weekly on Figure 4 Radio with Brian Alvarez. His mind for wrestling is great, and he's working for Impact now, so you could see a difference in their product. He always he likes AEW and the wrestling part of it, but he always criticizes. He watches Dynamite and feels left out, like he's missing a piece. And you should never feel that way when you're watching. You should always know what's going on. If you're even a casual fan just tuning in, you should be able to float in and know that this guy's important based on presentation. And they do that well sometimes. Like the match tonight had a big match feel. Let's not dismiss that.
Yeah.
But you can't just make people aware, like when someone debuts, that you're supposed to know, oh, he was in AAA, he was in New Japan, he also was in PWG. Like you have to explain that to people because not everybody has the extensive wrestling library of us who's on here for an hour and a half on every Wednesday talking about Dynamite. So there's some fans that just watch it like a TV show.
It's brought to you by.
So,
or just watch the Turnbuckle Tavern afterwards, and we'll explain it to you.
There you
go. Can't stop the kittens. Thank you for being in here. So yeah, Lance Storm is the one that works for Impact, and Alvarez definitely, and Meltzer too. I'm a big Meltzer reader, but there are times where they are less than honest about the product. Sometimes, just everyone has their opinion though. That's the thing, if you're reading Meltzer, if you're reading Alvarez, or you're listening to them, you have to understand that their perspective is going to be their perspective. And I think
that's true.
I listen to Jim Cornette as well. And I don't agree with most of the things he says, but it's also great to get a well-rounded opinion on what's going on in the wrestling world. You can't just listen to an echo chamber of your own opinions being spewed back at you.
So here, let's just watch the end of Being the Elite from this week. Okay. This is what you're missing if you're not watching Being the Elite, and I didn't watch it, so I have no clue. That's a cliffhanger that's going to want to tune into next week if it's on Dynamite.
Not to mention Hangman's pants are epic. The butterfly pants he wore last week, epic. Some cowboy shit. You're right though, Tom. I agree with you.
I like how they went about the Young Buck shit tonight. Didn't give away Omega tonight. A week of build towards it happening next week. Should have been building it up for longer, but whatever. Yeah, they're not great with the build-ups, and I don't mind an instant surprise like CM Punk tonight. Yeah, that's wrestling. I love that shit.
I think they had a chance to do that with Kenny a couple weeks back because he's been in the back booking and stuff, and he's been talking.
He stopped coming after he got re-injured himself when he was coming.
Interesting.
So he stopped showing up.
I wonder how much of what he's saying too on the Twitch streams is like similar to what Punk was saying at Comic-Con, like limping around. Maybe there's a piece of him trying to build up some suspense, No,
he was supposed to be back by now, so I believe it was true. That's the only thing.
It just feels a little weird that he's been out for almost a year at this point, and his comeback is going to be as a mystery partner. I
agree. I don't think it's him, the mystery partner.
Yeah.
Dreams, do you think he's the mystery partner for the Bucks next week?
It seems like it's him. It also seems like a weird way to bring him back, so I don't know.
Yeah, like you would think obviously it should be him. Like it makes sense. Okay, Omega's coming back. But if it's not him, who is it going to be that it's worth a damn to be like, oh, yes, this is their partner?
I mean, it could still be big if they do it correctly. It depends what happens after the match, if that's the way they do it.
It could still
I feel like that would have to close the show, though, and you can't really close the show with that match, especially I pulled up the card for next week. There's other things that need to close the show in order for it to build up to All Out. So, man, I don't know. It feels weird. Like anticlimactic a little bit for Kenny to come back there.
I said another thing that's likely is they have a different partner, and Kenny still shows up during that match.
Now that makes sense. Dreams,
like they set it up
in that brain.
Yeah, or like they set it up for you to think that's what's going to happen. It doesn't happen, and they pull the rug out from under you.
I like that. Now, Dreams, who do you think is going to win the trios titles?
House of Black. Oh wait, no, they can't.
I mean, they can.
I just don't think with the storyline that they're in that they can. I don't think it's going
That's
to
what
go to
I
them.
said. It feels to me like they're building towards something with Sting and Darby for the pay-per-view.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, so like, is it going to be Dark Order? Is this going to be where they try to give Dark Order their shine?
It's also weird too, and I'm also now thinking about all the trios. The fact that Blackpool Combat Club's not involved, and
Because
that
Mox is
feels-
going to be fighting Punk. How could he be involved?
no, I know,
I
but you
could
can
see-
also you can have Danielson, Cesaro, and I'm not Cesaro, Claudio, and Wheeler
Oh, that's true
in
too.
the tournament. You're gonna have Trust Busters in this shit. Like, I don't know. It feels similar. Like, I don't know. The more you look at it, the more it's frustrating because it could have been better.
Teams they could have used.
We're getting the Trust Busters. They've been a trio for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
Death
Blackpool
Triangle.
Combat Club should be in it.
Speaking of, I'm going to prove my point to you a little more, Ace. Did you see the new team on Dark this week of Shafir and Nyla Rose?
I did not see that, but that you were onto something. I'm not.
They have a team name now and everything.
Dude, if they have AEW Tag Champion, I think you may be onto something, but it may be like a little asterisk that you won. I think this may have to do with the New Japan women's division. They may be making
right.
maybe it's women tag team titles. I know they're coming out with the women's title, but we may be seeing I don't know. Maybe it's gonna be somewhere else. I just can't see them having another championship on this roster. And I know I've been like pounding that drum.
But they've been teasing little women's tag teams, so I have a bad feeling we're getting women's tag team titles next.
Maybe in ROH. Just, I mean, they don't have room. They don't have enough room to tell these stories. They can't even tell the women's world title story.
I don't disagree with you, but all of a sudden you got Thunderstorm and you got whatever the name of Shafir and Nyla Rose was. I forgot what the hell Vicky Guerrero named them.
Yeah, no.
I don't disagree. Like, I don't want them, but I'm just telling you, I have a bad feeling.
You guys got me like stun locked on the trios question still. Like, looking at the bracket, and I'm just like,
you know all the you know the bracket, okay?
Yeah. House of Black could still win it and continue another storyline while holding those titles.
That would be
but
cool.
Death Triangle is another good pick, I think.
Ooh, Death Triangle. We're sleeping on them. I could eat, but Pac is already a champion that they don't even utilize, and they don't.
They're stuck on getting Penta's mask taken off every week. Like every week, it's
this is
Penta's
the second
mask.
time we've seen him tied to the ropes too. Why would you redo that?
It's cheap heat for like the masked wrestlers, but it's like, okay, we've seen it. Like
Yeah.
we've seen it. Let's move on from this.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm happy the real Pentagon's back, not Penta Obscuro. I like the retro look is back because I was done with the whole fucking graveyard thing and what's his name, Jose the assistant showing up in like a vampire garb like that.
Yes.
Come on, get out of here.
That looks like it came from Spirit of Halloween.
Exactly. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. He's dressed like the Judgment Day from WWE. That's what he's dressed like.
Yeah.
I got you, Anthony. I knew you were watching.
I guess it's Dark Order, both for the feel good and for the final tension between Paige and the. Oh, that makes sense. Your corner against the Bucks. That makes sense, actually.
I know, but I could see that for sure. Like that's the only thing I have in my mind about Dark Order, but they have there's been no build to them at all. They've been so stagnant. And again, you could turn the heat on a little bit. They win a tournament all of a sudden. They win 3 matches.
Yeah.
They feel hot again, but
Yeah,
they are.
I mean, they might have had guys like this in mind whenever they were deciding to make this title to begin with.
Yeah.
So it can work that way as well.
I mean, they could go that direction and then have it focused on Dark and Dark out.
It's easier to say who definitely isn't winning than who's winning it.
All right, let's eliminate who's not winning it.
The Trustbusters are not winning. Best Friends are not winning.
Okay.
Yeah, Osprey's not winning it.
Damn.
LIJ is not winning it either.
Yeah, and as much as I like them, Andrade and Rush,
yeah, LIJ.
I wouldn't count them out. You know, all of a sudden they got a big win tonight over.
They're gonna beat the Bucks though, and returning Kenny Omega.
Nah.
Sure. Unless, again, fantasy booking. You have the Bucks come out, their mystery partner does not show. They lose the match. Kenny shows up and he's heel. The Bucks are face. That could be what they do.
Yeah. That's my question for you, Freems. or is this going to be the shortest face run for the Young Bucks in history? Did you see them tonight?
I think they'll run when Kenny comes back. He's going to be face as well.
You think so? Oh, I don't agree.
Oh, people are going to be so stoked that he's back. It'll be like trying to make Stone Cold. It's going to be like trying to make Stone Cold heel.
True.
I hope he still acts like a heel. And Don Callis.
AEW fans love to play along, though. So I think if he comes back, they're going to cheer him. But I think if he tries it, I think that's one thing about AEW, the audience, they play along because they get what they want in the end, and they don't have to hijack the show. So I think they'll boo him if they're trying to boo him.
You can only do so much, though. Kenny Omega gone for a year. I mean,
true. You're right.
It'd be difficult.
I'm going to cheer him
here because the Young Bucks are terrible.
I cheer heels though. So
Young Bucks win tournament. That could be.
But similar to a lot of the build towards Forbidden Door, there's been some you would have loved to have Undisputed Elite in this as well. Like you would have loved to have them there. Cole, Fish, and O'Reilly would have been perfect in this.
Should they have delayed it? Kept it till these guys were healthy, or no?
I think it's too late. I think they got hurt once they were announced. Yeah,
now it is. But there's no reason that the final match had to take place on a pay-per-view. It could have taken place on a Battle of the Belts.
Yeah, I think at this point though, you have those matches in the bag. Once the champion's there, you can eventually hold on the line. Undisputed Elite gets a shot.
When I was watching them turn on Hangman and Bucks, you could tell by the way that Fish and O'Reilly were performing that they loved that. They looked so good during that.
I agree.
I thoroughly enjoyed that. I was like, man.
I think it benefits everybody by separating them.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Right.
What a conversation, Freems. This was a lot of fun. You have the Fab Five coming up. You have something in mind?
Well, I can't say it live. I can tell you guys after the thing's over.
Fair.
All right, guys, let's wrap it up, guys. Thanks again for joining us tonight. Before we go, remember just to head on over to theturnbuckletavern.com. Follow, like, and subscribe to us everywhere you possibly can. Join the Discord. The link's right there at theturnbuckletavern.com. We're going to be having watch parties this weekend. Get your asses over there.
Watch Cardona and Chelsea get married from Atlantic City.
This weekend.
Yes.
Oh, nice. You definitely have to watch that. Until next week, for Freems, thank you for joining us, Freems. Go to twitch.tv/Freems. Watch his streams. We got Ace. Ace, quick plug out your stuff.
Yeah, so make sure you guys tune in Friday for episode 17, Shot Nostalgia. 2 more episodes, the Go Home Nitro for Hog Wild, where Hogan wins the title for the first time as the New World Order version of Hogan against the Giant. Looking forward to it. And we have a special guest this week, Chad, the One Bad Chad from Turnbuckle Tavern, joining us, talking about the lawn dart incident where Rey Mysterio gets lawn darted into the production truck, talking about the ramifications of the reality blurring the lines, the real Disney MGM police showing up and chaos ensues, and how that storyline really revolutionized wrestling. So, man, I'm pumped. And thank you so much for all the positive feedback for Shot Nostalgia. I'm looking forward to this episode. We got a long ride ahead of us. We're ending this in November, so stay with us.
Yep. And then, guys, remember, you got the flagship show tomorrow morning for your full in-depth Dynamite recap with the 2 Chads. They're not bad. I'm not going to call them bad. I think they're great. Check it out. Most in-depth Dynamite recap show you're going to find. Friday, you get Turnbuckle Sessions with me and Mike. This week, a little hint. We're going to be going over some of our favorite wrestling video games of the past. So we've got a fun one in store for you. How
are you guys not going to have me on that one? Holy, come on.
Well, you're more than welcome to come on, Freems. We're recording tomorrow night.
Streams.
So, until next week, guys, for Ace, for Freems, it's the OG Fig Kid. Peace, love, and pro wrestling.